Wow! Good job! But don't worry, I'm not gonna make you animate these eyes for 8 hours straight like I did, because in the description is a link to 3 free eye animation presets that you can use. Patreon members get access to this whole project as well as the eye animation file. Shout out to Sandboxer for paving the way of this effect, and with that being said, let us begin. I made this effect simple with only 3 steps.
Come on, man! That's too easy!
The first being motion tracking. There's 2 ways to track your car subject. The first is using the native camera track on After Effects. It's not the most accurate and you still have to do some keyframing, but you can use this if you can't use Mocha because you have a version of After Effects from the website www. Bring in your car clip and do any warp stabilizing of it first, then add unsharp mask with these settings to your clip to sharpen any lines in your footage, which makes it easier to track. With the pen tool, draw a mask around the car and then track it by clicking the clock, moving a few frames and making sure that the car is within the mask. Next, we right click, pre-compose, move attributes to new composition, and now we can right click on it, track and stabilize, track camera. And because we masked out the car, now we get tracking points on the car only. So now let's select the ones that represent the planes on our windshield, then we right click on it, create solid and camera. Now we can see that we have created a solid that is tracked to this plane. You can now delete the sharpening effect and the mask that you made. Now let's right click on our plane, pre-compose, and check leave attributes in composition and rename it to tracked plane. The next step is to add our eyes. Double click on this tracked plane composition. Now drag in one of the eye animation presets I created for free. If that doesn't deserve a like, then you're a mother. So once we add our eye animation, we resize it so the eyes fit perfectly inside the square, and we also can delete this tracked solid. Next, we go back to our main composition and resize this plane and also the position using these 3D arrows so it's roughly on top. And now we can drag in the corner pin and drag the corners so that they match our windshield. This is where this tracking method falls short, as you may or may not have to track the corner pin effects throughout the footage if the perspective changes like it did on this clip. You can mess about with the mesh warp effect if you want to round these straight lines more and match your car shape, but
ain't nobody got time for that.
The second way is with Mocha AE, which is free with Adobe After Effects. Let's drag the effect into a car shot, click on the big sign, and it should look like this. If your workspace is different, go to workspace and change it to essentials. Now we get the spline tool and draw around the windshield of the car whilst keeping the mask slightly inside, and try to be accurate because this will be important later. Let's ensure the perspective is toggled, and then you can click track forward, making sure to make any corrections as it goes along. When you make a correction to one point, Mocha fixes all the other points, which is really good. Once done, you can click on the layer and click this button to show the surface. Now this is really important. This is essentially the plane of the eye animation, so try to match the perspective of the car's windshield, but also make sure that this surface is slightly larger than the masked area. And if you're in doubt as to whether the perspective is right, just click show grid so you can check it. And once you do that, click save and close. Now you can drag in the eye preset above the car, then click again on the car shot, and in effect controls, in Mocha, tracking data, the export option, make it corner pin, and then the layer to export to, make it the eyes. And when you export it, you can see that our eyes are perfectly tracked onto the windshield. But they're really big, and as she will always tell you, bigger is not always better. So now let's drag the car shot on top, and on the Mocha effect, instead of tracking data, we open up matte. Check apply matte, invert it, and add some feathering if needed. Now our eyes sit inside the windshield, but there's one thing missing.
Compositing.
I'm not sure if you noticed, but our eyes don't match our car.
What?
So there's 3 main things we're going to do here. Just to note that if you used Mocha AE, you should firstly right click on your eyes, pre-compose, and click leave all attributes. And everything else you will apply inside this composition. Color matching. So the first thing we do is match the color of the eyelids to the car. We do this by adding a change color effect, then select green as the color to change, increase the matching tolerance to about 24% and the softness to about 20%. Now we can change the hue transform until we find the approximate color for the eyelids. You may need to drop the lightness and saturation to match it up to the car, but it will still look a little out of place, which is why we do the following. Let's firstly click on our car shot and add the effect Gaussian blur, then ramp up the blur until you can't see shit. Then click on your tracked plane and add the effect tint. Then map black to the darkest color of the scene and map white to the lightest color of the scene. Now we can delete Gaussian blur, and then we can drop the tint to 0 and slowly increase it until it matches our scene. Now we can add a glow effect and put it underneath the tint to give our eyes some life. And now it's time for some
Reflections.
Let's duplicate our car shot and name it Reflection. Let's cut it with Ctrl or Command X, double click our eye composition and paste it here. Then we scale it to only show what would be reflected. In this case, it will mostly be these trees to the right. Then we drag in the effect Turbulent Displace, change the offset so that it goes in the center, then play around with the complexity and amount until it looks mirror-like. If you used method 1, the next step is to pre-compose, move all attributes to a new composition and mask this so that it's the same size as our eyes. Then finally hit T for opacity, drop it to 0 and slowly increase it until you're happy. But you may notice that our reflections look a little bit too sharp. So we click on the layer and add CC Radial Fast Blur to this reflection. Edge blend. If you use camera track method 1 and found that the edges are a bit too sharp for you, add the effect cropped edges to the eyes. Then increase the amount to about 2% and add some feathering. And that should fix some issues. Or grow up and use Mocha AE. The best part about this effect is that if you ever decide that you don't like the look of these eyes, you can swap them whilst keeping the same effects by clicking on the eyes and holding Alt Option, drag in the other animation. Now he's looking mad sus. So what are you waiting for? Also, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have an overexposed sky, then check this video out to learn how to fix it. Project files link below, shout out to the mandem. Ya con todo eso dicho, nos vemos en el próximo video.